I mean, it's really difficult right now because we're not seeing one-on-one competition or things of that nature. I mean, with them only doing small groups or whatnot, but under normal circumstances, I mean, it's all the way from just, physically how they look and how they compete. There's something to be said about guys that are timid and, maybe lose a rep and then sulk at the back of the line and don't go back out and compete again versus the guys who, have to be, chastised for trying to sneak in and take too many reps. I mean, you're sitting there, you're looking at their physicality, you're looking at just how they look. But I mean, with that being said, you go to a Sunday recruiting camp and then you pop in the tape to see what the kid looks like on Friday night. I mean, I've seen some kids who are just, combine warriors, just put up gigantic numbers because they can throw a medicine ball or run with a parachute on their back, or any of the, are really good at running ladders. And then you put in their Friday night tape and it just doesn't match. And then I see guys who are the other way. So I think it's really important when you go to one of these camps to kind of not allow it to shape your entire decision-making process, but you can gather a lot from, what a player's about. I mean, maybe what his mentality is. A lot of times you're going to have these guys that are going to go to these camps just because they want to hang out with their boys and don't necessarily go and compete. And, you have to kind of measure that too.
I go back to the stories of Malcolm Jenkins when he was camping at Ohio State and cutting in line to get more reps because he was a 3-star guy trying to get his offers. But you also have guys who are counting where they are and counting where the best receivers are and making sure they're not going against the best receiver. You've got those guys, you've got the other guys who are making sure they do go against the best receiver. So I think that's one of the interesting things. I don't go to a lot of camps because if you don't cover it, you don't necessarily know who everybody is. And I think even if you do cover it, you still don't necessarily know who everybody is. And they don't give you rosters. And but as you watch it, even if you don't know anything or know anybody, the guys still stand out. And I think that's one of the fun things. They stand out, and then you're like, okay, well, you talk after the camp. Well, who was that? And they tell you, and it's like, well, that makes sense because everybody is after him. And the fun ones are like, well, who was that? And it's like, we don't know. And then you have to do some digging, and they're fun to watch. I don't know. The one-on-one stuff is great. Going and not being able to watch the one-on-one stuff last weekend or whenever it was, that would be tougher for me because you're watching one guy and how he moves, and sure, you can get stuff that way, and I know we all did, but I much prefer to watch the quarterback throw one-on-ones against a corner and with a receiver, and that because then you get to see 3 things right there.
I mean, just at the camp this last week, it was very obvious when CJ Hicks showed up. And he put on 5-7 pounds of muscle and just looked chiseled. You didn't even need to see him go through a drill to be like, all right, this kid's got it. I mean, and there was, there were a lot of other talented players at the position, but CJ honestly was kind of in that all airport team. When you see him walking around just in street clothes, that he is a football player and he is an athlete. So, you even get it to that point. And to agree with what Tony said, thankfully we had rosters this time because we've gone to plenty of camps and we've not had rosters, and there are very few people in this industry who can sit there and pick out 50 players, 75 players just from eyesight when everybody's dressed pretty much the same, and I'm certainly not one of them. And
sometimes their numbers get ripped off of their shirts, and so they're running out there without numbers, and then you're like, well, now who is it?
It's like watching the old blue-gray game on Christmas Day when everybody used to throw the decals all over their
decals.
Helmet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Steve, I just hit these guys up with in regards to, you guys aren't scouts or coaches, but you're pretty much the next best thing in terms of watching so much football for so long and at a level and more closely and intimately than anybody else does in regards to watching practice. And then we were specifically talking about these recruiting camps and getting to see these players and just your approach to trying to see what you see and what are you looking for, plus what information are you trying to gather from others?
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of the guys have said. I think what you're looking for is somebody who dominates against light competition. Like if you know, like the Friday Night Lights camp, you got a great defensive back and a great wide receiver, and you see that kind of a battle. It's rare a lot of times that you'll have that, but man, I can remember there was this goes back a ways. There was a big time defensive line kid from Washington D.C. and I forget his name, but he put on a show like a pass rushing drill, and one after another, these great offensive line prospects just got owned by this guy, and he comes out the rankings and he's like number 1 or number 2 in the country, and I'm like, yep, I understand that, because the guys who were supposed to be the very best offensive linemen in the country, or some of them, got owned by this guy at this one camp. It was a regional camp that we were at, maybe a Nike regional camp or something. So that was kind of cool. But, again, I think a lot of times caught up in, does he test well? Does he run well? Does he do all this well? But the other side of this is, does he play football well? That's the biggest thing. Does he have instincts? Does he not take bad steps? And you can't tell that on a field in July or June with no helmet and no shoulder pads and no competition. So, when the bullets are flying and championships are on the line, does this kid make the play to put his team over the top? Is he a leader? And you can't tell any of those intangibles from watching a camp thing. So I have always taken a lot of the camp stuff with just a grain of salt, and known that there are more pieces to the puzzle. And Ohio State in particular, I know, has always recruited more than just off the camps and combines. And that's how you win a championship like 2014, is because you have recruited people who are much more than skin deep baseline caliber type people. They are through and through quality people. And I think that's something that can't be misstated. It's great if you recruit the number 5 player in the country, but if he's not there for you in 3 or 4 years to help you win that championship, then what did you really get? You got a good backup player for a year or two, probably. So I don't know, just a lot to think about.
Go ahead, Tony.
Jonathan Cooper in 2016 moved up the rankings based on camps and being outstanding one-on-ones in camps and showing what he could do. 4 years later, now he has 6.5 career sacks. And, he jumped up to 5-star status and everybody was raving about him. And now he's at Ohio State answering questions about, are you unhappy with how your career has gone? And this is your last chance to be good, and all of these things. So, yeah, the camps, they're fun. Sometimes they get it exactly right. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes players move up because of, just like the NFL draft. When you draft somebody, Mike Mamula, if we're going to go way back, draft somebody based on a combine performance without looking at all of the tape or ignoring the tape. And there are plenty of scouts out there who hate the combine in terms of how much weight the general managers and team owners and presidents give it, when there's so much more film that tells you so much more than a combine, and tells you what Steve was talking about, leadership and the will to win and all of that stuff.
I would just think that the other major sports, meaning baseball and basketball, it would be so more valid what goes on at these camps, because everybody swings a bat and hits the baseball. You can do that without any other players on the field. Throwing the ball, fielding the ball, all those things that can be done as an individual player in baseball. Obviously, the least of the team sports that involves chemistry or teamwork on the field. Basketball, the same thing. Sure, you want to see within the team concept, but you dribble, you shoot, you pass, you do all these things with the basketball in your hands. There's so many positions in football that don't require handling the football itself, number one. And number two, it's such a physical sport that once you take that away, it really, requires the keen eye of a scout that really understands what they're looking for under those circumstances.
That's why you see coaches go to basketball games to watch the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman play there and see the footwork and see the quickness and see the athleticism, see the fight. And why Urban Meyer was always championing multiple sports and playing multiple sports, and don't just become a specialist in one sport, because you get to see them do other things and apply that to however you scout them. But yeah, they love watching the offensive linemen and defensive linemen play basketball. I went to see Orlando Pace in high school. Yeah, I went to watch Orlando Pace and play a tournament game in high school, and yeah, he was everything that he was advertised as, and he, I'm sure I was not the only one there who knew him from football to watch him play basketball.
I saw Charles Woodson. I was calling a state tournament game, play-by-play basketball game. Charles Woodson at Old St. John's Arena, and Charles Woodson was one-on-one on the perimeter with the other point guard who was dribbling the basketball, and so there was no traffic, and it was plain as day. Charles Woodson reached out and popped the kid right across the jaw for whatever reason. And the guy doing the play-by-play with me, the analyst, was like, "Did you see that? Why did that not get called?" I was like, "Yeah, I think everybody saw it." Yeah, Orlando Pace as well. Yeah, I got to see that as well, of him on the basketball court dominating down low.